Welcome back to GHRTV. This week's Human Rights News looks at the execution of an American inmate by nitrogen gas suffocation. On the 25th of January, a correctional facility in Alabama State executed 58-year-old Kenneth Smith, a convicted murderer via asphyxiation, becoming the first case in American history. Smith's execution took about 22 minutes despite the state's claim that the nitrogen gas would cause Smith to lose consciousness in seconds and die within minutes. Prior to the execution, authorities in Alabama reportedly described the use of pure nitrogen gas as perhaps the most humane method of execution ever devised. Alabama has faced widespread condemnation after the execution. Volker Turk, the UN High Commissioner for Human Rights, said on Friday, "I deeply regret the execution of Kenneth Eugene Smith in Alabama despite serious concerns this novel and untested method of suffocation by nitrogen gas may amount to torture or cruel, inhumane, or degrading treatment." 4 independent UN monitors had called on Alabama to call off the execution earlier in January. Other UN experts have stated that the use for the first time on humans and on an experimental basis of a method of execution that has been shown to cause suffering in animals is simply outrageous. Ravina Shamdasani, a spokesperson for the UN High Commissioner for Refugees in Geneva, highlighted the UN's opposition to the death penalty in principle and added that nitrogen hypoxia is not an acceptable euthanasia method for most mammals, citing the American Veterinary Medical Association, which wrote that nitrogen hypoxia is only an acceptable euthanasia method under certain conditions for pigs but not other mammals. Given that the execution method has been shown to cause suffering in animals and carried out as an experimental execution on humans, it has been described as state-sanctioned torture that is contrary to international law and U.S. obligations under treaties that uphold civil rights and prohibit cruel, inhumane, or degrading treatment or punishment. Additionally, the U.S. signed the United Nations Convention Against Torture and Other Cruel, Inhumane, or Degrading Treatment or Punishment, which outlaws the imposition of physical or psychological abuse on people in detention. While it does not explicitly prohibit capital punishment, the treaty does forbid the intentional infliction of pain, which Smith's execution falls under. Furthermore, as per the Chemical Weapons Convention, which the United States ratified in 1997, each state party to this convention undertakes to never under any circumstance use chemical weapons. Though intended for weapons of mass destruction, this convention determines chemical weapons to be toxic chemicals and their precursors designed to cause death or other harm. Therefore, even though it was used on a specific individual, toxic chemicals were used with the intention to cause death, thereby arguably violating the international agreement. U.S. states that still allow the death penalty have found it increasingly difficult to obtain barbiturates used in lethal injection execution protocols, in part because of a European ban preventing pharmaceutical companies from selling drugs to be used in executions. Ohio lawmakers have since introduced a bill that would allow execution by nitrogen gas, as it is widely available commercially and can be manufactured easily, making it easier to access than drugs used for lethal injections. Thank you for tuning in to this week's Human Rights News and Updates. For further human rights news, please follow us on our social media channels.